The latest statement from the Indiana Fever comes after Turner, who is in Indiana for the Aces Fever matchup tonight, declined to provide further context around the allegation made on social media. Quote, no comment. Wow. She said when asked about it, Brianna Turner gave the same response to a follow-up question asking if anyone specific from the Fever asked the players not to say anything.
That is where this story changes. Brianna Turner made a serious public allegation about what happened inside the Indiana Fever organization, and when reporters finally had the chance to ask for specifics, the answer was simply no comment.
And included in this was an accusation of sexual harassment that took place last year involving the Indiana Fever organization. Well, this looks interesting because it looks like Brianna Turner lied. That's what this looks like.
And that matters because this was not some vague complaint about a bad workplace or a disagreement with management. Turner publicly connected the Fever to an alleged sexual harassment situation involving a former male employee and claimed players had been encouraged to stay quiet. That is a concrete accusation with real consequences, especially when you attach it to a franchise already sitting in the middle of one of the biggest cultural fights in women's sports. But there are two separate questions here, and mixing them together is where people get reckless. The first is whether something inappropriate actually happened involving that former employee. The second is whether the Fever told players to keep quiet about it. Those are not the same allegation, and the Fever is now pushing back hard enough that the wording of both sides matters. Turner's original post did not appear out of nowhere. It came during an argument over transgender participation in women's sports after Sophie Cunningham was quoted saying she supported transgender people but did not believe trans women should compete in women's sports. Turner responded by arguing there were bigger threats facing women, and then she brought up what she said happened with her former WNBA team. That context does not prove Turner wrong, but it does explain why this became explosive so quickly. She introduced the allegation in the middle of a political and cultural argument, meaning people immediately treated it not just as a workplace claim, but as ammunition in a much larger debate. And later in this video, there is one detail in the Fever's response that makes the whole thing even more complicated than simply choosing which side you like.
Quote, we want to set the record straight. Fever said in a Wednesday, August 5th statement, there is no allegation of sexual harassment. No players were directly involved, and we never sought to silence them. As we previously stated, protecting our players, employees, and maintaining a respectful professional workplace is our top priority.
Listen carefully to the Fever's language. They said, there is no allegation of sexual harassment, no players were directly involved, and we never sought to silence them. That is much stronger than the organization's first response. Their earlier statement was mostly corporate language about taking concerns seriously, investigating thoroughly, acting promptly when appropriate, protecting employees, and not commenting on personnel matters involving former employees. That first answer left a lot of room for interpretation because it did not directly confront Turner's version. Now they are confronting it. The phrase, we never sought to silence them, goes directly at the most damaging part of Turner's claim. She said players were encouraged to keep quiet. Indiana says they never tried to silence players. Those positions cannot both be accurate in the ordinary meaning of those words unless there is some distinction neither side has explained publicly. And this is exactly why Turner's no comment becomes such a big moment. When someone makes a public accusation and the accused organization issues a direct denial, the next logical step is evidence, clarification, names, dates, emails, instructions, witnesses, or at minimum an explanation of what encouraged to keep quiet actually meant. Was there a meeting? Was there a message? Did someone from basketball operations tell the roster not to discuss it? Was it a general confidentiality reminder during an employment investigation? Was it one employee speaking unofficially? Those details would completely change how this story should be understood. Right now, we do not have them.
On July 22nd, Brianna Turner alleged the WNBA team fired a male employee for sexual harassment last season and encouraged players to, quote, keep quiet about it. The now Aces forward made the allegation on social media X in a series of posts defending transgender people.
That July 22nd post is the foundation of the controversy. Turner alleged that a male staffer was fired for sexual harassment and that players were encouraged to remain quiet about it. The Fever's response creates an important distinction. Indiana says there was no allegation of sexual harassment, but the organization also says it does not comment on personal matters involving former employees. Without the underlying personnel records, outside observers cannot independently resolve exactly what conduct was investigated, why the former employee left, or how the team internally categorized whatever happened. And that is why calling Turner a liar as an established fact would go further than the public evidence allows. Her allegation is disputed. Her decision not to provide further details weakens the public case she made. The Fever has issued a clear denial of the silencing claim. Those are the facts we actually have. But a denial from an organization is not automatically proof that every aspect of an allegation is false, just as an allegation on social media is not automatically proof that misconduct occurred. The standard should be the same regardless of whether you like the player, the team, or the political argument surrounding them. Show what you have. That is especially important because Turner was not speaking anonymously. She attached her name and career to the statement. Once you do that, people are going to expect you to defend the factual claim when challenged.
Turner responded by making an argument that there are bigger threats to women. Quote, an issue that was caused problems, though. Last year on my WNBA team, a male staffer was fired for sexual harassment, but we were encouraged to keep quiet about it. That is an issue. Sexism, misogyny, homophobia, and racism are all issues, Turner said.
And notice how Turner framed it. She was making a hierarchy of threats argument. Her point was that sexism, misogyny, homophobia, and racism were bigger problems than the transgender athlete debate, and the Fever example was presented as evidence supporting that broader position. That makes the accuracy of the Fever claim even more important. If you use an alleged workplace incident to strengthen a public argument, you cannot expect people to ignore the details when the organization directly denies your characterization. The stronger the accusation, the more important specificity becomes. There is also a fairness problem here that cuts both directions. If Turner is telling the truth, then she deserves the opportunity to provide enough information for the allegation to be evaluated seriously. If the Fever is telling the truth, then the organization has every reason to object to being publicly portrayed as a franchise that covered up sexual harassment or pressured players into silence. Those are enormous reputational stakes. And the fastest way to destroy any chance of figuring out what happened is for everyone to retreat into teams. People who already dislike Turner declare she fabricated everything. People who dislike the Fever assume the organization is covering something up. Neither conclusion is established by what is public. The responsible position is more uncomfortable. There is a direct contradiction, and the person who made the accusation has so far declined to explain it further.
So what happened here? Did she lie or did the Fever quieten everybody up? By the way, an NDA probably fall apart in court. To be quite honest with you.
That question is the heart of it. Did Turner exaggerate or mischaracterize what happened, or is there additional context she is unwilling or unable to discuss? The transcript raises the possibility of an NDA, but there is no evidence presented here confirming that Turner signed one or that any agreement prevents her from speaking. So you cannot use an NDA as the automatic explanation for her silence. And even if some confidentiality obligation existed, that would create another obvious question. If she was restricted from discussing the matter, how was she able to make the original public accusation in the first place? Maybe there is a legal distinction, maybe there is not. We simply do not know. What we do know is that she had already put enough information into the public domain for people to identify the Indiana Fever as the team she meant. Once that happened, the organization was dragged into a controversy involving sexual harassment, employee termination, and alleged pressure on players. That is why no comment does not end the story. It actually intensifies it, because now the audience is left staring at two incompatible narratives with no supporting documentation from either side. The Fever has the advantage of issuing the most recent and most detailed public statement. Turner has the advantage of claiming first-hand proximity as a former player who was inside the organization during the period she referenced. But proximity is not proof. Corporate denial is not proof either. Evidence decides this.
I don't know who to believe. I'm going to lean Indiana Fever because Brianna Turner was mad over the transgender thing that Sophie Cunningham said. I don't know. But you were quick to throw it out there, and now you've got no comment. So it makes it look like she's full of shit. Or she's been silenced, one of the two.
This is where the commentary gets much more aggressive, and it is worth separating reaction from evidence. The argument being made is basically this. Turner was willing to make the accusation when she was angry about the transgender athlete debate, but once confronted by reporters after the Fever denied it, she stopped talking. Therefore, the commentator says he is leaning toward Indiana. You can understand why that sequence creates suspicion. Publicly accuse, receive a direct denial, then refuse specifics. That is not a great optics progression. But bad optics and a proven falsehood are different things. A person can decline to comment for legal reasons, personal reasons, advice from counsel, concern for another person's privacy, or simply because they regret turning an internal dispute into a public fight. None of those possibilities proves the original claim. On the other hand, refusing to provide any clarification also means the public has no reason to treat the accusation as conclusively established. That is the standard people should keep. Not believe every accusation automatically, not assume every organization is innocent automatically. Evaluate what is supported. Right now, the strongest verifiable development is that Indiana has specifically denied the key claim that players were silenced, while Turner declined 2 opportunities to explain who allegedly told players not to speak. That absolutely changes the balance of the public conversation.
Fuck it. She lied. Until she comes out and gives specifics about it, yeah, no comment ain't going to work now. Now she looks like a former employee that's disgruntled. So fuck it. She lied. Until further notice and specifics from Brianna Turner, she just lost her benefit of the doubt. And you put a hurting on the believe all women situation.
And this is the point where I would stop short of the language you just heard. Saying she lied until further notice may work as provocative commentary, but that is not how a factual burden works. You do not establish a lie because someone has failed to prove an allegation in a press scrum. What you can say is that Turner has not publicly substantiated the claim after the Fever challenged it. That is already significant. If she has messages, witnesses, or a specific account of who allegedly instructed players to keep quiet, releasing or describing that evidence would dramatically strengthen her position. If she does not have that evidence, then the accusation may eventually collapse under its own weight. And there is another consequence here that goes beyond Turner personally. Public accusations about workplace misconduct are taken seriously precisely because the subject is serious. When allegations are made imprecisely politically weaponized or left unsupported after challenge, critics use those examples to dismiss other people who may have much stronger evidence. That is why accuracy matters so much. The answer cannot be believe all women regardless of evidence, and it also cannot be doubt all women because one allegation is disputed. Both slogans replace judgment with ideology. The better rule is painfully simple. Take claims seriously, investigate them seriously, and demand evidence seriously.
ESPN's PR department made a post on X Tuesday and announced the ABC broadcast of the Fever Lynx game drew 2.5 million viewers. Damn. And peaked at 3.1 million viewers. This made the contest the second most watched WNBA game ever on an ESPN-produced broadcast. The graphic ESPN posted also indicated that the audience for Sunday's game was up 7.
And then the video takes a hard turn into the other story surrounding Indiana right now, the audience. 2.5 million viewers for the Fever Lynx game on ABC, with a peak of 3.1 million. According to the ESPN graphic discussed in the source, that made it the second most watched WNBA game ever on an ESPN-produced broadcast. And the audience was up 77% compared with the previous year's ABC regular season average. That number tells you why every controversy involving this franchise becomes enormous. Indiana is not operating in a normal WNBA media environment anymore. Every argument around the team gets amplified because millions of people are watching games, debating players, fighting over officiating, discussing roster decisions, and dragging culture war issues into sports conversations. The Fever have become one of the league's primary attention engines. And attention changes the stakes. A workplace allegation involving a franchise drawing ordinary niche sports numbers might live for one news cycle. An allegation involving one of the most scrutinized teams in women's sports can spread across social media, national outlets, podcasts, and television before the basic facts are even settled. That is exactly what happened here. Turner's post entered an already combustible ecosystem. Then the Fever denied it. Then she declined further comment. Now every side has clipped the part that supports whatever conclusion they wanted from the beginning. Meanwhile, millions of people are still tuning in.
Interesting. Indiana's dominant victory over the Aces the weekend before that contest drew 2.64 million viewers across.
And the rating story gets even bigger when you put that Fever Links audience next to the previous weekend. The source says Indiana's win over Las Vegas drew 2.64 million viewers across NBC and Peacock, making it the largest WNBA audience of the year at that point. Then the Fever Links game followed with another massive number. That is not a one-game curiosity. That is a pattern, and this is where the controversy and the business story collide. The WNBA has spent years trying to expand its mainstream audience. Now Indiana games are repeatedly producing the kind of viewership that forces broadcasters, sponsors, league officials, and rival teams to pay attention. Every Fever road game becomes an event, every comment from a player becomes content, every dispute becomes national. That creates opportunity, but it also creates pressure. Players who previously could post something to a relatively small basketball audience are now speaking inside a media environment where one sentence can become a national headline. Teams that previously handled disputes quietly now know any vague statement will be dissected word by word. That is why the Fever's second statement matters so much more than their first one. The first response sounded procedural. The second one sounded like an organization that realized the story was not going away. We want to set the record straight. That opening tells you Indiana understood it needed to confront the allegation directly. And now the ball is in Turner's court.
WNBA audience this year. We got a rematch tonight over on the Ben Daniel Podcast channel, Ben Daniel Podcast TV channel. He will be live with a watch party. I will be manning the chat.
The rematch only adds another layer because Turner was back in Indiana with Las Vegas while all of this was unfolding. Think about that timing. A former Fever player publicly makes an accusation against the organization. The team disputes it. She returns to Indiana with the Aces. Reporters ask her to clarify the allegation. She declines, and at the same time the Fever are drawing some of the biggest television audiences the league has seen. That is why this story feels larger than one social media post. There are really three battles happening at once. There is the factual battle over what happened with the former employee and whether players were ever encouraged to stay silent. There is the cultural battle over transgender participation in women's sports, which is what triggered Turner's original comments. And there is the attention battle surrounding the Fever, because this team has become a ratings machine capable of pulling millions of viewers into every controversy attached to it. Those three things are now tangled together, which makes discipline even more important. The Fever's denial should be taken seriously. Turner's original allegation should be taken seriously. Her refusal to elaborate should also be taken seriously. None of those facts cancel the others. The most defensible conclusion right now is not that Turner has been proven truthful or proven dishonest. It is that she made a serious accusation, Indiana explicitly disputed it, and she has not publicly provided the details necessary to resolve that contradiction. That leaves her claim in a weaker position today than when she first posted it, because there is now a direct denial sitting beside it, with no public rebuttal. If she later provides evidence, the story changes. If additional former players independently confirm her account, the story changes. If documents emerge showing the Fever handled the employee matter exactly as the organization says, the story changes in the other direction. But until something like that happens, certainty is performance, and that is the real payoff here. The most dramatic conclusion is not always the strongest one. Saying somebody definitely lied gives you a clean villain. Saying a franchise definitely covered something up gives you another clean villain. The available evidence does not justify either shortcut yet. What it does justify is pressure. Pressure on Turner to explain what she meant. Pressure on reporters to keep asking specific questions rather than letting the story dissolve into partisan shouting. And pressure on the Fever to remain consistent with the categorical denial they have now put on the record. Because with audiences this large, everything gets magnified. The league wanted attention. Indiana has attention. Now everybody involved has to deal with what comes with it. So which side has the bigger obligation from here? Does Brianna Turner need to come forward with specifics because she made the accusation publicly, or has the Indiana Fever already said enough by issuing a direct denial and putting its position on the record? Pick a side in the comments, and if you want more breakdowns of the stories driving the WNBA conversation, like the video and subscribe.